one kid's like, "Are you the Hannahs?" And we're like, "Yeah." And the other kid's like, "Can you do a backflip?"
So we'll start with the obvious one. How long does it take to drive here from Cairns?
I've done that for a while. 35 hours or so.
Solid. Solid.
Something like that.
Do you remember doing it? Lots of drives down here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And racing BMX, I've driven from Melbourne. We used to live down in Victoria, so we'd be driving north. You mean when Tracey gets it?
Yeah.
He hasn't been injured since I've been on the team. How does it feel?
It sucks. I've spent way too much time in hospital lately and I haven't hurt myself.
But I don't like watching him ride that much. I can watch him ride, but like he made me film him do this stupid jump yesterday, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And on the film, we were watching the film back, and I was like, ah! And he was the one doing the jump, and I was watching.
Yeah, I was going to show you.
So the potential for injury scares me with him, because he rides too fast.
I think it was an awesome place to grow up. There's a couple of spots in Australia that have a similar sort of feel, or just a couple of riders, but CAIRNS, I think, especially early on, really pushed the limits. And kind of, like along with the Canadians, it's sort of the first free ride type stuff. Everyone would just go out in the bush and see what you can ride and outdo each other. So I think it was a good environment to grow up in, and sort of I grew up racing downhill with quite an open mind. Everyone stops for a break halfway down the hill and you see something stupid in the bush and everyone goes and tries to ride it. One of our favourite tracks up there. The first time I did it, it took us like 2 hours to do a run, and the whole time is just everyone just walks off in the bush and finds a big rock or chute or something to ride. And so it's like just stuff like that. And then when you look at a racetrack, you're looking for cool stuff to do, or big jumps and bigger lines are kind of attractive instead of scary because you've grown up with that challenge. Yeah, we both started in BMX. Trace was 3, maybe.
Yeah.
First time she raced nationals.
Yes, 3.5.
Oh my gosh.
Weird.
I started when I was about 6.
Yeah. And when did you move?
Moved from, I was 11 when we moved from Victoria up to Cairns, and got to know a couple of the mountain bikers there and started racing mountain bikes.
I was kind of just on the sidelines, but I loved it from the beginning, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, please, can I come? Like, nah, you're too slow. Like, and finally, like, he let me start riding when Michael went away for racing, like, his first year. I was riding with friends and stuff, and they were like, oh, you do want to ride. And I was just riding a Merida with, like, it only had front suspension, but I used to love it.
She was lucky starting on suspension.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good brakes.
Sweet girl.
Just folded my wheels, that's all. That hasn't stopped though.
Yeah, we did a lot of runs.
Just get your skills up when you do heaps of runs. It's if you just keep doing something over and over, you just become natural. So doing 1 million runs makes you natural on the downer bike.
That was, as far as I know, the first pump track was in the backyard there. Joel Leaney, one of our close friends, kind of feels like part of the family now, but he lived there, and so we kind of just paid half the rent each at one stage, and I lent him a 4-cross bike to race a 4-cross, and he built 2 berms in his backyard there to practice turning on a mountain bike, and then he put a roller in between them, and then that's how it progressed, and it turned into a pump track, and now every kid in the world's got a pump track. So yeah, that's the story of the little shack.
Yeah.
It had half the walls it should have, probably.
It was pretty creepy. Right in a jungle of spiders and snakes, and
Turkeys.
like when you drove into the driveway, you drove past a witch's house. Pretty creepy.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, she had like a human skull. At first, it was the sponsorship stuff for women. It was like, now it's hard. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was really hard. I'd been to America 2 years, and then I went to race a whole World Cup series, and it just came to the point where I just couldn't continue to do it anymore, realistically. And I would always come home with a debt, and I would always have to work and then go back, and it was just unrealistic, and the options for sponsorship weren't really there. Like, I felt like a lot of the women were kind of riding for free, or like, you know, a little bit above free. I just said no, I'm not going to continue like the trend of riding for nothing just because I'm a girl. So I stayed home. That was it. And then finally the race came to Australia, the World Champs, and I really wanted to race. So that was going to be my comeback, or I was going to get back into racing. It was only like 2 years later, a year and a half. And I wasn't allowed to race because I hadn't raced the National Series, and it wasn't fair to the other Australian women. So out of 7 places, two Australians rode, and the first girl got like 22nd. So once I got told that I couldn't race the Worlds in my own country, I quit. Like, that's when I sold my bike, and I was like, well, I'm done with the sport. When I started racing again, I literally said in comments to someone, oh yeah, that would be fun to race. There's a race down the road. And so then I had a call saying, oh, you can use your old bike. I got it. I rode, and then, yeah, a week later I had a bike on my doorstep. And I was racing all the races just for fun. It was awesome because I was just riding for fun, no pressure. And then I ended up winning the series that I'd started racing, and then like NS Dynamics supported me to go national, and then kind of won the national series. And then Michael was talking to the new team, which was Hutchinson UR, and then they spoke to me about doing a couple races for the year, and then I won the first World Cup, and they were like, do the whole season. So that's kind of how it started. Simple. Yeah. Just meant to be.
We would prefer to stay together, and most of the sponsors we had behind us love having us together. Yeah. It's kind of a good story.
Yeah, it's cool.
It helps each other. Like, Tracey helps me a little bit with marketing and stuff like that, and I can help her on the track, and just you kind of feed off each other.
Because he has his reputation being a man, top of the men, you know. So my reputation needs to be built. I've got results, but results aren't all there is for women, I think, or for someone who's not getting paid a lot. So I guess being out there, doing cool stuff, being interesting, not only like in your results. It kind of all started with the injuries, so my results kind of stopped, but I wanted to keep my name out there, so I started using different areas of exposure to keep my name, you know, known. I guess first of all having a positive attitude and not stepping backwards and saying, how am I ever going to ride again? Just keeping positive, and I guess when you have an injury, you're getting in a bigger boat with more people, so you're kind of getting to a level where everyone has to start at the beginning, and I had to start at the beginning again. So I guess just trying to relate to people and keep updated with how I was going through my injuries, and just being positive, maybe a bit of a role model, I hope. It's very exciting and bizarre at the same time, but I honestly don't know how people are going to handle that heat. Even you experienced it, and you're Australian. Every time I road ride out my house, I can look at the hill. Yeah. It's weird. I think the coolest thing is that our parents and our brother and sister can see. So for them to actually be able to go out at a decent hour and watch a race is kind of cool.
Yeah, not 2 a.m. yelling at the computer.
Yeah, and also for the people at home, it kind of makes it more real. And you get to see it, and you see the speed, and see what all the riders can do, and how good everybody is.
The first time I rode it, we just did 2 runs just to see what changes they might need on it. I rode it with Reese Atkinson, so I just did a couple runs. It was fine that day, they just needed to change a few things. And then the next time I rode it, when we had a test day, it had been raining a lot, so it was really slippery. Like ridiculously slippery. So I don't know. The dirt's red dirt. If it's dry, it'll be fine, but in the wet, it's pretty interesting. We didn't stay on our bikes.
Well, I plan to crack it. Yeah, it is starting to shape up a bit that way. To be compared to someone like Steve Pete's pretty special, but I feel like I'm going in a good direction, and I've been steadily improving the last couple of years and loving travelling and racing, all that. So I think it's really close. This year in South Africa, it was a track that I've always kind of done well at, but I was excited to be up there. I was a bit bummed to get beaten, but Greg was the faster guy that day. But then the next race was in Norway, which is next year's World Champs, and I was just as close to the pace then. I made a silly mistake in the final, but I qualified second, like 1/10 of a second off G. So I think with another year and like going on how I've been improving, I've got a really good chance for the next couple of years, I think. And then coming to CAIRNS in 4 years, that's still within range. I shouldn't be getting too old by then. So I think Petey was 35 or so when he won, so got a few chances left.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're really dedicated to having a good product from our experience. They're just always working, and I'm seeing that they're trying to get it right before they produce it. So, and obviously it's a really competitive bike already, so that's really cool. And they treat us really well, and they seem to be a very honourable business to work for. Yeah, well, we are always giving feedback, just taking notice of everything we feel and go through on the track. It's kind of with all the stuff we have, it's just anything we notice or feel or anything, just constantly feedback. And everybody we're working with now really seems motivated to grow and change. I just sent my contract off yesterday for the next 2 years, and I've not so much looked at the products that are the best right now, but more into looking at who's behind those products and what their goals and visions are.
They work hard. Hutchinson worked really hard. They're always keen for our feedback, and that's one of the reasons they're one of our main sponsors, because they want to push hard in that area.
And they were, when I started downhill, they were the main tyre.
Yeah.
Like
the Squalls, it's still called the Squalls, and
everyone had them. And now
they're still going because they don't wear out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Funny.
Yeah.
They got a bit softer now.
Yeah.
They work.
That's something that's going to happen in the next month or two.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I'm not into all the only feedback I've heard so far is, yeah, that feels great here, and it doesn't feel as good here, and it's like, what time did it do? And nobody has an answer, so we've got some help from Freelap, and we'll be doing some timing.
Cool.
Whatever the clock says, that's what we'll run.
Not about feel for you guys, eh? Isn't it?
No. That's something that you learn through really like good testing is sometimes it feels good and it's fast, but it's pretty rare. It's like what's fastest may or may not feel better. It just depends, especially with suspension. Like when we tested a few different frames before we signed with Polygon, and the frame that I would have chose, hands down, was 2 seconds slower than the Polygon in a minute and a half. So you just have to time it. That's simple. I don't care how it feels to you. If you can't tell me what time to do it, I'm not interested.
We're trying to go taller and taller all year.
Really?
It's like, oh, okay, let's go up again. You just want that bike to go fast and hold on.
It's a bit, I don't know, it depends on the track really, and where you like balancing your weight out and all that sort of thing. So it's definitely a bit too tall for around here. But when you get overseas, the tracks are a bit steeper and all that. So you're just trying to balance your weight out really. It really just depends, like bar height and all that sort of stuff. For me, it's a weekly thing. Yeah, sometimes that happens less than the bar height really. But it definitely is something you play with, and sometimes it's just a matter of adjusting the dampening. A couple of clicks of rebound can just make your bike sit a little bit like that, and it squats in, and then you don't have to worry about adjusting your forks and stuff like that. So there's quite a lot that goes into it. That's the importance too of testing as much as you can with a stopwatch.
Wrestling.
Moto's my favourite type of cross training. It's actually my love, I think.
Really?
I reckon it's for me, like having the injuries, I got a bit hesitant on the bike, so I'll be spending as much time as I can on the motorbike this year to go back to being confident going faster on my downhill bike. Trail.
Just get out.
Yeah, just
Back
out in
country.
the bush, go fast.
Yeah.
Trail's always different, so your mind's always, what's next, you know? You're never doing the same thing, the same jump. Like, I find on a track you're just learning the track again, but if you go out trail riding, you never see the same thing twice. That rock's never there again the next time, so...
You surprise yourself a bit too.
Good for
You're
your
out
mind.
riding with everyone and you end up going flat out because you want to go fast. On a downhill, you tend to ride the first couple of runs a bit slow because you know you're going to do a bunch of runs, but on the moto, if you want to ride fast, you just got to ride fast because you're not going to get used to the track. So.
Yeah.
And you hit stuff that's surprising and you get away with it, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe that's possible. There's a lot of guys that are really against it. There's some guys that are saying there should be one of those in the World Cup, and I'm not sure that's true. Like, it kind of blurs the line a little bit. I think it's a different sport, but I think it is a really healthy thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
First day I was like, what did I come here for? But by the end of the week I was into it and started getting my head around it. I don't have any aspirations of winning it by any means, but I think I could at least be in the final.
I think it's like nice to see a different side of the team, and we're not just races and results. We're like people that have to live every day with each other and get injured and whatnot.
Learning to tell a story, and so we want to win, but it's like it's all at the moment. It's almost like winning's more important to me than it is to all the sponsors. They want to see their products out there and represented well, and they just want us to tell the story, tell the whole thing.